With less than 1 month to go until Election Day, the North Carolina State Board of Elections unanimously passed emergency measures today aimed at helping both election officials and voters impacted by Hurricane Helene. These measures will apply to 13 counties in the Tar Heel State, where the board says infrastructure, accessibility to voting sites, and postal services remain severely disrupted. Major Garrett joins us now. He spoke with the head of the North Carolina State Board of Elections earlier today. Major, I imagine they are very, very busy.
Yes, look, there's a hierarchy of needs in Western North Carolina right now. Food, water, shelter, power, cell service, all of them rank higher than accessibility to a mail-in ballot and understanding what your location is to vote early and in person. We understand that. But there's still an election, and there are hundreds of thousands of voters who participated in the 2020 election from these 13 counties who have to have a plan when they can refocus on who they want to vote for and how they can submit that ballot. And today, the 5-member board voted unanimously to create some changes. And I talked to the leader of that board, Karen Bell, for her perspective on the changes made and how they're planning to assist those voters who want to participate even as they come out of this horrific storm. Let's listen. Karen, what did the State Elections Board decide today, and what adaptations will be undertaken to make sure those voters who live in 13 counties most directly affected by Helene can participate in this election?
So today, the state board took action with their emergency authority to give really flexibility to these 13 most affected counties so that they can change or add or modify their early voting sites. Early voting in North Carolina begins next Thursday, October the 17th, and runs through November the 2nd. So this gives them flexibility if they need to change up those sites. They get similar provisions to be able to relocate election day sites or merge them, whatever can best accommodate the facilities that they have access to, the workers that they have access to, and still be able to get voting to the people. That's really key because so many of these Western North Carolinians have been cut off from their county seats and so forth. It gives them flexibility in terms of the precinct officials. We can now allow other registered North Carolinians to come in and work in those counties. It also allows for some changes in how voters can get their absentee by mail ballots back. In any county in North Carolina, early voting sites can accept absentee by mail ballots, but now in these 13 affected counties, their election day sites can do so. And similarly, to try to be of assistance to the voters, we can have those absentee by mail ballots delivered to other county boards of elections not affected. That can be delivered to the voter can take it to those county board of elections, or they can take it, a near relative can deliver it as well.
These adaptations and this flexibility is in deference to, and I want you to describe for my audience, the challenges that these 13 counties are facing, not just with voting, but day-to-day existence.
Last Monday, 1 week ago, we did not even have all of our offices open. 14 of them were not. And I'm so pleased to say that today, all county election offices are open in North Carolina to the public. And that's just remarkable because it's happening at a time when many of these officials, these county election officials, have lost their own property. They've been displaced. Many of these 13 most severely affected counties still do not have water and sewer. They are limited in power at their homes. They have it at their county board offices. They have electricity. They have internet and cell service at their county board offices, but they may not have that in their homes. We have workers who can't come in because their driveways are washed out. They may have a bridge over a creek and they're having to rebuild that in order to come back to work. So just to know the level of dedication that these people have it's about their spirit. They are that committed to ensuring that every eligible North Carolinian is able to cast their ballot.
There is an assumption, and I want to make sure people understand what we're talking about here, that all of these counties are Trump counties. Most of them are. I did a quick check of the 2020 turnout. So there are 13 counties, as you mentioned. President Biden carried 2 of them. President Trump carried the other 11. If you take the 11 counties that former President Trump carried in 2020, that comes to roughly about 39,000 votes across all those 11 counties, not just for President Trump, but across all the votes, and about 190,000 in the 2 counties that Biden carried. So there are lots of voters in these 13 counties, and they're distributed not exactly equally, but there's Biden voters and Trump voters there, and you want to serve all of them.
That is exactly right. The actions today were unanimous by bipartisan state board of elections. What we've asked for in a lot of the actions that the counties will take to serve these voters is a bipartisan majority to make these changes and accommodations. And so, in our everyday capacity, our job, our commitment, and our oath is to ensure voting for every eligible voter. We don't care about the political stripes. We care about people getting out to vote. And in reality, in North Carolina, we actually have more unaffiliated voters than we do of either major political party. So we don't know what North Carolinians are going to do when they go to that ballot box. But what we do know is that we want them to be able to have that option. And so we're taking every measure we can to ensure that in all of these counties that are so heavily affected, that those voters are going to be able to vote.
Karen Bell also told me this, Ouija, that people who were not necessarily planning to participate as poll workers or election administrators are volunteering now because they've heard that people who were going to do those can't get there, can't do it. She said people are throwing themselves into this task at the last minute just to make sure people can vote, even while people have so many other needs.
It's always remarkable in times like this to see Americans come together for each other. Thank you so much, Major.
Sure.